The Hall of Concordance was a cathedral of stars. Suspended in the void of neutral space, its walls shimmered with projected constellations, galaxies wheeling in endless silence beyond. Delegates of 1,000 species gathered beneath its dome, their voices a low thunder of politics, pride, and ancient rivalry. Every meeting began the same way: roll call, ceremonial greetings, and the slow, grinding business of galactic governance. And every meeting, for nearly a century, had also begun with a hollow pause. Designation, Earth, intoned the keeper of records, its voice a reverberating metallic chime. Present representative? A hush followed. The chamber's countless eyes turned toward a seat, a single obsidian throne-like chair embedded with shimmering glyphs, that had never once been occupied. Silence. The keeper of records logged the absence. As always. Murmurs rippled among the assembly. Some laughed quietly, others muttered disdain. Humanity had been granted a seat at the council after their remarkable rise from planetary isolation to interstellar presence. Yet not once had they appeared. Their absence had become a running joke among elder civilizations. Primitive arrogance, hissed a scaled delegate from the Xerathi Dominion. Its translucent frills quivered in irritation. They accept membership and then insult us with silence. They are not primitives, countered a smaller, feathered envoy, though its voice carried no conviction. Their world survived what many thought impossible. Wars, plagues, collapse, and still they endure. Endurance is not strength, snapped another. If they possessed true might, they would stand here, not hide. The debate moved on, as it always did. Resolutions were drafted. Treaties amended. Fleets dispatched to the edges of disputed territories. And Earth's seat remained empty, gathering dust in the Council's collective memory. Decades blurred together. The galaxy forgot to expect humanity. Until the day the silence broke. It began with whispers. At the edges of charted space, far beyond the familiar routes, listening stations reported anomalies. Vast gravitational distortions. Engine signatures unlike any catalog drive. Entire patrol fleets vanished without a trace, their last transmissions filled with fragmented static and a single repeating code, Soul. Some said the humans had finally died off, consumed by their own chaos. Others claimed Earth was little more than a myth now, a relic species that had squandered its chance. Then the skies of concordance changed. One morning cycle, as the delegates assembled, the holographic dome flickered, not with the stars of the cosmos, but with ships. Thousands of them. Cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers. Their silhouettes were angular, brutal, forged of dark alloys that seemed to swallow the light. A fleet large enough to blot out constellations hovered in perfect formation. Not in some distant sector. Not on the edge of known space. They were in orbit above the hall itself. Panic erupted in the chamber. Delegates shrieked, wings beating, tentacles thrashing, voices overlapping in chaotic terror. Security fields snapped online. Defense satellites pivoted their cannons toward the intruders. Across a dozen species, old instincts of prey and predator surged as one, fear of annihilation. Identify, roared the keeper of records. The answer came not as sound, but as presence. The humans did not broadcast in council-approved languages. They did not plead or explain. Instead, the void itself seemed to tremble as the fleet released a synchronized pulse, a low, resonant signal that bypassed translation matrices and spoke directly into the nervous system. Every being in the hall felt it, a warning, a promise, a reminder. We are here. The Council's defensive grid locked on target. Thousands of weapons hummed with lethal charge. But every tactical officer knew the truth, their systems had been quietly overridden. The humans had seized control the instant they arrived. Screens filled with impossible data. The warships in orbit did not match any known classification. Their energy cores pulsed with unnatural stability. Their hulls reflected scans back as void, no readings, no weaknesses. Some of the ships bore scars of age, as though they had been forged generations ago yet endured unchanged. Others gleamed with cutting-edge precision, new and terrible. And there were so many. Not the fleet of a backwater world. Not the navy of a young, untested species. This was an armada greater than the combined militaries of half the council. The empty seat no longer looked foolish. It looked terrifying. In the chaos, one elder rose. High Chancellor Vadran of the Ulvari, a being older than most recorded empires, lifted a trembling claw for silence. Its silvered scales shimmered in the council's trembling light. They waited, Vadran rasped, voice raw with awe. By the stars, they waited. Delegates turned, confusion sharpening to dread. Waited for what? Demanded the Xerathi. The Chancellor's gaze swept the chamber, lingering on the empty seat. For this moment, Vadran whispered. To arrive not as supplicants, but as rulers. No message came from the fleet. No delegate descended to claim Earth's seat. The humans merely held their position, thousands of warships circling like silent predators above the heart of galactic governance. Their silence was no longer absence. It was dominance. And every species in the chamber understood, with sickening clarity, that the era of laughter was over. The humans had missed every meeting. Now, they had arrived. The Hall of Concordance, once a temple of order, had descended into chaos. Delegates raged, whispered, pleaded, each voice drowned in the collective panic that surged like a tidal wave against the chamber's grand walls. Above them, through the shimmering dome of stars, humanity's fleet remained motionless. Thousands of black-hulled warships, patient and terrifying, orbited the hall as though watching, waiting. Days passed. Then weeks. No envoy descended. No transmissions came. The humans offered no explanation, no demand, no ultimatum. Only silence. It was not the absence of words. It was a silence that suffocated. A silence that weighed on every mind until the council itself seemed to crack beneath it. Emergency conclaves were convened. In the lower chambers, strategists pored over fragments of intelligence gathered in the lost centuries of Earth's absence. Every data point was dissected, every rumor given weight. What they found did not comfort them. Humanity had not been idle. Scattered reports revealed entire star systems around Sol had gone dark to prying eyes. Automated probes vanished before breaching the heliosphere. Listening stations in nearby sectors reported ghost signals, fleets maneuvering in silence, supply lines hidden, shipyards masked by interference fields. For generations, humanity had concealed its hand. While the galaxy debated trade routes and border skirmishes, Earth had built a machine of war behind a wall of shadows. A single fact emerged with clarity: the humans had never missed the meetings because they did not need them. In the great chamber, fear sharpened into argument. We must strike first, snarled the Xerathi delegate, its scales bristling. Their fleet threatens the very core of our civilization. If we delay, we are prey. Strike? The feathered envoy of the Tlay ruffled its wings in disbelief. Against that? It gestured toward the dome, where a carrier the size of a small moon drifted lazily in orbit. Our combined armadas would be dust in moments. They will devour us if we do nothing. They already could, murmured another delegate, voice quivering. And yet they have not. That was the truth none could ignore. Humanity had the power to annihilate the Council's fleets, to obliterate the Hall itself, to scatter their civilizations into ash. Yet they waited. Their restraint was more frightening than any weapon. Behind closed doors, espionage bloomed. Spies were dispatched to Sol. Intelligence vessels crept along the edges of human space, cloaked in desperate stealth. Few returned. Those that did brought stories that bordered on madness. A vast orbital shipyard surrounding not one world, but 5, each churning out dreadnoughts by the thousands. Of colonies that bore scars of self-made wars, yet stood unbroken, forged in trial by fire. Of training grounds where entire generations were raised not in comfort, but in preparation, an endless crucible of conflict that produced soldiers who never knew fear. One report claimed humanity had found something. A relic buried deep in their homeworld's crust, predating even the oldest galactic species. What it was, no one could say, but the whispers suggested it had rewritten the course of Earth's destiny. The Council did not know if the rumor was truth or manipulation. But the fear it seeded was undeniable. As days stretched into cycles, tension strangled the galaxy. Trade routes froze. Border patrols withdrew. Even long-standing rivalries grew silent, each species waiting, watching the Black Fleet above Concordance. Economies faltered. Colonies starved. And through it all, humanity said nothing. It was the silence of a predator circling its prey, deciding whether to strike. At last, the Council voted to act, not with weapons, but with words. A delegation of the most respected chancellors, scholars, and envoys would attempt to address Earth directly. They would send their voices into the void and hope humanity chose to answer. The transmission was prepared with ritual care. 1,000 languages woven together. Protocols of peace layered with pleas for dialogue. The message was broadcast into orbit, a chorus of desperation hurled into the black-armored fleet. The Council held its breath. The reply came. One ship broke formation. It was not the largest. Not the most fearsome. A cruiser, smaller than its dreadnought brethren, drifted from the fleet like a shark peeling from the school. Its engines burned with restrained precision as it lowered into Concordance's docking rings. For the first time in living memory, a human vessel entered the Hall of Concordance. Delegates pressed against the barriers, their many eyes wide, their hearts pounding in anticipation. The airlock hissed open. Steam vented. Heavy, deliberate steps echoed down the ramp. The figure that emerged was tall, armored in dark plating that shimmered like forged obsidian. The visor of their helmet reflected the chamber's light, masking the human face within. Every step was steady, measured, radiating a calm far more terrifying than rage. The human did not bow. Did not greet. Did not even look upon the gathered delegates. They walked past the assembly, past the odd stares, until they reached the empty seat at the center of the chamber. And sat. The silence was absolute. For the first time in a century, the seat of Earth was filled. The human's voice, when it came, was like iron scraping against stone, distorted through translation fields, yet carrying the weight of command. We listened. 3 words. That was all. Then nothing more. The chamber erupted. Some wept. Some screamed. Some collapsed in despair. Because 3 words were enough. Enough to confirm what all had feared. Humanity had not been absent. Humanity had been listening. Watching. Learning. Every word spoken in the chamber across 100 years had been heard by the species now sitting in their midst. Every insult, every plan, every weakness laid bare. The galaxy had mocked their silence. Now it understood the truth, the silence had been humanity's weapon all along. And the fleet above remained. Thousands of warships, patient as ever, circling the hall like wolves awaiting their master's signal. The question burned in every mind, unspoken but undeniable. What would humanity decide? The human sat in silence. Armored, faceless, immovable, the figure at Earth's long empty seat was a shadow that stretched across the galaxy itself. The 3 words it had spoken, we listened, echoed like a death knell through the chamber. Delegates trembled, voices rising in frantic waves. They spied upon us, hissed the Xerathi, spines bristling with rage and fear. They studied us, whispered the Tlay envoy, wings tucked tight in submission. They waited, rasped Chancellor Vadrin, silver scales dimmed with dread. Above them, through the dome, the fleet remained, a constellation of warships blotting out the true stars. Silent. Watching. The galaxy had always believed itself vast beyond reckoning, its council the pinnacle of civilization. But compared to the Black Armada circling overhead, it seemed suddenly small. Fragile. Prey. At last, the Keeper of Records, its voice trembling for the first time in a millennium, dared to speak. Humanity of Earth, state your purpose. The human did not answer at once. Instead, a slow, deliberate motion, gloved fingers tapping once against the armrest. The sound echoed like a hammerfall. Then the visor tilted upward, reflecting the thousands of terrified faces. We warned you. The words landed like thunder. Confusion rippled through the chamber. Delegates exchanged frantic looks. Warnings? There had been none. Humanity had been silent. The human's voice grew colder. Not with words. With absence. You were given centuries to find balance. To end conquest. To abandon your games of dominance. Yet every cycle we listened, you repeated the same rituals of arrogance. Border wars. Exploitation. Chains upon the weak. Images flooded the chamber. Not projections from council archives, but recordings from humanity itself, vivid, unflinching. Worlds scorched for resources. Species enslaved. Treaties broken. Crimes long buried under bureaucracy and lies. The delegates gasped, recoiled, shrieked in denial. But the evidence was undeniable. You debated in comfort, the human said, while blood watered the stars. Rage boiled in the chamber. Some screamed defiance, others begged forgiveness. Yet no one could rise above the crushing weight of truth. Because in their hearts, they knew. The council had become a theater of power, not justice. A court of predators circling prey. And the prey had learned to wear iron teeth. Then the skies changed. The human fleet stirred. Thousands of warships shifted in silent synchrony, peeling away from orbit. They did not vanish into hyperspace. Instead, they spread across the skies of concordance, forming a vast ring that blotted out the stars. A cage of steel and fire around the heart of the galaxy. Panic swept the chamber. Delegates hurled demands, pleas, threats. What do you want? The Ulvari Chancellor rasped, desperation breaking its ancient dignity. Conquest? Tribute? Our worlds? The human rose from Earth's seat. Their voice cut through the hysteria like a blade. No. We want an end. The chamber froze. To war. To chains. To the endless rut you call governance. The visor turned, sweeping across the council like judgment itself. From this moment, the galaxy changes. Not by your vote. By our will. The declaration was madness. Yet it was undeniable. Who could oppose them? What fleet, what alliance, could match the Black Armada circling above? The humans stepped forward, and for a moment the chamber seemed to shrink beneath their shadow. You mocked our silence. You mistook patience for weakness. But silence was our crucible. While you schemed, we forged. While you devoured, we endured. Now. The human raised a hand. Above, the fleet responded. One warship descended into low orbit. Its colossal cannons pivoted not toward the hull, but toward the void beyond. A single beam lanced outward, faster than thought, tearing through empty space with impossible precision. A star on the galactic fringe collapsed. A warlord's hidden foundry world, shielded in secrecy, vanished into nothingness. The fleet had mapped every crime. Every stronghold. Every chain. And they had the power to erase them in an instant. The demonstration needed no explanation. The delegates collapsed into stunned silence. The galaxy had always feared conquest, domination, annihilation. Yet what humanity offered was far more terrifying: judgment. "This council is finished," the human said softly. "You will obey the laws we set, or you will not exist to disobey them." The words carried no anger. Only certainty. It was not a threat. It was a sentence. Somehow, impossibly, a strange quiet calm settled over the chamber. The terror remained, but beneath it, something else stirred. Relief. For among the smallest and weakest species, the ones long ignored, exploited, enslaved, there was no fear in their eyes. There was hope. Because if humanity's silence had been for anything, it had been for this: not to rule the strong, but to shield the weak. They had not come to conquer. They had come to end the endless game. The human turned, walking back toward their ship. At the airlock, they paused, one final sentence carried through the chamber, etched into memory like fire across the stars. "Remember this day. For it is not the day humanity arrived." The visor tilted once, reflecting the terrified faces, the hopeful ones, the broken ones. "It is the day we ended your age, and began ours." The doors sealed. The human was gone. Above, the fleet held position, encircling the Hall of Concordance like eternal sentinels. Not conquerors. Not liberators. Judges. And across the galaxy, from the proudest empire to the smallest outpost, every species understood the same chilling truth. The age of silence was over. The age of Earth had begun.